Hi, welcome to another episode of From the Goat Up. Today we are in a segment called Ask Me Anything. We asked our viewers what you guys want to hear the most, and I have a list of questions here and I can't wait to share. So let's go. Welcome to From the Goat Up, where we talk about ambition, motherhood, business, and what it really takes to earn your seat at the table. Okay, so here's the first question. What was the moment I realized my career was truly changing directions? That's a great question. I would say that I didn't really realize that it was changing direction until um, it took the different shift. And one day, someone actually brought it to my attention. They're like, "Wow, you should be so proud of yourself. You accomplished so much. You were able to achieve, X, Y, and Z." And when I thought about it, I was like, "Oh, I can't believe that that actually happened." So I personally didn't even realize that it just happened. So I like this question. This is a good realization, aha moment for me personally. What early career decision had the biggest long-term impact? Well, definitely joining Dionis, right? That was definitely my longest term impact. But also, I think being able to just kind of go with the flow and creatively trying to figure out my sweet spot and like what makes me happy and how I want to function in my day. I think that was like learning as I was maturing and aging in my life. But yes, Dionis definitely was the most long-term impact. How did I know when it was time to move from doing the work to leading the work? I don't know. I feel like this is a trick question. And the only reason why I say that is because when you work for a small company, you always have to do the work in addition to lead. I don't think anyone in the company, including myself, just sits at their, I'm going to call it the throne, and just like, oh, everybody go do this, this, and this. Like I've been in the warehouse packing up a box. I have, been at a trade show going into a crate and unpacking and setting up a show. And I've been in the lab, experiencing myself, the products, and trying to learn everything about what everyone is doing. And I've done every single role that everyone has done in the organization myself. So I feel like that never really happens at a small company. You really have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and jump in just because, we're all in here doing, trying our best to do it all. So yeah. Um, what's a skill I underestimated early on, but now see as critical? So I don't know if this is a good or a bad, but I think multitasking is definitely like a critical role as you're growing a brand, as you are developing products, as you are thinking about the next big step. For me, that was or is like my special power. And also, I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I can just keep going, going, going. I don't tire. And at the end of the day, it's not like at 5 o'clock, I'm like, okay, I need to go to bed. I'm exhausted. No, I could work until like 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's not a good quality, but I do have that. And I have to like say to myself, okay, the sun is setting. I have to leave. I'm going because the work never ends. But that is, I guess, a combination of my um, special power. What do I wish I had stopped worrying about sooner? Well, I don't know that you ever stop worrying about anything. I worry about everything every day. I worry about what we're doing, how the customers are reacting. Does everybody love a new product? How are my employees doing? Is everyone okay? Is everyone happy in their role? Is everyone, feeling good and accomplished? So I don't know that you ever stop worrying. But I do feel a little bit more confident, I would say, in the company and like what we're doing. I know that it's taken a lot of hard work to really develop and execute on what we said we were going to develop and execute and what we continue to say, and that's very important to me. And so that's probably what I would say. Okay, so this is more about leadership. What's the hardest leadership lesson I've ever had to learn? Oh, I feel like I'm constantly learning as a leader, but I will say as a leader, you can never make everybody happy all at once. You're definitely going to disappoint somebody someday, and you have to be okay with disappointing people. As long as you're confident in the decision that you made and that you know that you've done your best and put your best foot forward, I would say that is how you should lead. But yeah, you're definitely going to disappoint some people. How do I balance empathy and accountability? This is a hard one. This is a hard one that I'm still like constantly dealing with because as a human, right? I have empathy and I constantly think about that when I am doing, when I'm having conversations with employees or anybody, right? It's like, how do I, disconnect from that? And I always think about the person on the opposite side of my desk who's probably thinking, like, God, I can't believe like she doesn't even care about this whole thing that I have going on in my life, or I may not even know what's going on in their life. But I try to be really sensitive to just explaining that this is not a personal, this is from a business perspective because I do have to protect the business. And the reason why I say that is because I feel personally responsible for every employee that works here. And if the business is not doing well, then everyone's in jeopardy. And so I have a really like I literally like sleep at night. During COVID, I'll just tell you a quick story. During COVID, we had to shut down because it was essential businesses only. I literally started having panic attack at night because what am I doing with all of my employees? How am I going to keep everybody employed? How do I not furlough people? How do I not lay people off? Thankfully, because we make it ourselves, we were able to make hand soap, we made hand sanitizers, and so we became an essential business. And I was keeping everybody going and we were great. But that was a really scary moment for me. And I still think about that every day. And so with every person that I hire, I am really specific of, what is that job? What is that person going to be doing? And are they going to be busy? Because I don't ever want to be in a position where someone is hired just to hire them and then I have to let people go. That is the worst thing of my job. And so I guess if I answered this question about empathy, I do have it every single day, but I do hold people accountable and I am very strong in that regard. And that's because of just the bigger picture, right? Of keeping everybody going. What do high performers need that they don't always ask for? Help. When you're a high performer, you have a tendency to just go, and you want to just do it all yourself. I personally know that we work for a small company and that everyone's already going above and beyond. I know everyone's job is encompassing of 3 and 4 roles, not one. And so I try really hard not to ask for help unless I really need it. But I think that when you're a high performer, you have to be able to delegate and then step back, or ask for help and then wait for that help to come to you because it'll actually make you a stronger performer because then you'll be able to focus on what your special skills are. And so that's really important. And that's something that I think everybody should, or at least I work on every single day. Okay. How do I know when to coach versus when to make a tougher call? So my thing is everyone has like a special power. Everyone knows or they come to Dionis, at least, I'm going to speak for Dionis. They come to us with their own special gift and special expertise in like what they know how to do. And I feel like as my job as their leader is to pull it out of them. So I don't like to put people in a role that I know that they're uncomfortable doing or that they're not doing well at because I know they're not going to succeed and that's going to end up being a very uncomfortable conversation. So going back to not wanting to hire someone that's just to hire and fill a role, I really look for people to say, how are you going to fit in this organization and what's going to make it work? Because I want you to be successful. Because if you're not successful, then we're not successful. It doesn't help me at all when a person doesn't do their job well or isn't successful. So I try really hard to coach and figure out and learn. It's probably more learning. And then when I see that special gift in them, even if it's not fully formed, how do we coach them and develop them into that role so they become stronger? And then once they're in that role, then of course the accountability is there and the performance. And then you do have to sometimes have the tougher conversation of like, hey, this isn't working out. But the few times, and I will say that it's the few very seldom times that that's happened here, it was such a easy conversation because when I said it to the person, they came back and said, I figured this was going to be the case. I felt it in some way. And so that was, it wasn't as tough, I guess, as it should have been. So this one is, what's a leadership mistake I learned the most from? There's a lot of mistakes as a leader. You're definitely not perfect. And if a leader says that they are, that's not a real leader. I will say self-doubt is my recommendation that, that you really need to, learn from the most. I always say trust your gut. always, go with your gut of what, you believe. Data is always important and you need to look at numbers and you need to understand that. But at the end of the day, especially as a leader, you know what the right thing to do is. So doubting yourself, I think, is probably one of the biggest mistakes, at least for me. Whenever I've doubted myself, I would go back and say, I should have listened to my voice because I knew what the right thing was. And so to me, that's really insightful and something that, that confidence, right? Just having that within. And it's so interesting because, of course, my next question is, how do I handle moments of doubt or uncertainty? So I kick myself a lot, especially when I doubted myself when I knew that I was right. But if I'm uncertain, what I do is I take a pause. And I think that that's really important. If you truly in your heart don't know what to do, take a pause. And this is really like, anywhere in your life, right? But like take a pause until you kind of get that gut check of like, this is what I should do. And if you kind of get into your space, into that quiet voice, into that quiet time, and you really reflect and think about what you're being faced with, you'll know. You'll just know. Okay, so this is more about me personally. So, what season of my career stretched me to the most personally? I would say early on, Diona's days when we were really, when I was building the team and building the brand in such a big way, that really stretched me personally because my home life kind of took a back seat to my business just because I really needed to put a lot of effort and time into it. And so that did stretch me. It was a lot of long nights. It was a lot of travel. It was a lot of weekends coming into the office. But I was building a brand. And so for me, it was just something that I needed to do. And thankfully, my husband and my family were just really supportive. So that I'm really appreciative of. How has my definition of success evolved? It's interesting because when I was younger and I was thinking about success, I don't know, I feel like everybody always says success equals money. And I don't know if that's just a young thing that happens or if it's like a real thing for people now. But for me, as I've aged and grew in my role and in my life, money definitely does not equal success. I think it's your self-worth. How do you feel waking up in the morning and coming and to work or whatever it is that you do every day, right? How do you feel every day waking up and doing what it is that you're doing? I think success is self-worth. In addition to that, it's for me, it's my family. I attribute my children, my husband, my family, health, happiness, growth, and development as success. How much when we go on a beautiful family vacation, that's successful to me when we have a good time. So it's those things. It's less about how much money do we have? What kind of car am I driving? What is the next, item that I bought? To me, that's materialistic. That stuff can go in a minute. So I don't try to, I don't even think about those things. What do I protect now? Time, energy, boundaries that I didn't before. It's interesting. This is like a work in progress. Time, I try to protect. So my thing is when I go home at the end of my day, no matter what time it is, I put my phone down for a couple of hours to be with my family. I may not be there for dinner, but I try to be there as much as I can to just spend time with my kids or my family. I call my boys if they're not home, a lot right now, my older ones. So I call them to try to connect, my parents, whatever it is. Energy is hard for me, like, because I said I'm an energizer bunny. So for me, it's hard to recognize when I've overdone it and when I need a minute. But I do try to now take vacation and try to really not be accessible if I can. It's really hard for me to do that. That goes into the boundaries question. Just because again, I feel very responsible, right, for the business. And so I don't like to disconnect because of something urgent. So I have certain people in the company that know when to reach out to me and when not. And so like my leadership team and I, like we have a really good communicative relationship. And so they kind of, they know the business is going well, everything is great. Let's not bother her. But then they know when to connect with me and then when I'm available. So I think I've kind of set myself up in a good way, a combination of all of those three, but still work in progress, still not perfect. What's something that people don't see about leadership at this level? It's very lonely at this level. because you don't have a coworker to talk to about like, hey, I'm having a really hard day today, or I'm going through this, because it's you, right? You're at the top, so you have to figure it out. So loneliness is probably something that people don't realize, and I know, feel bad for me, right? Lonely at the top, but that's not what I'm gathering. I'm trying to get at. I'm just saying it's lonely when you're struggling with a decision, or when you are doubting yourself, like we said, or when you really are trying to figure out how to solve a major problem. It's a lonely feeling to be sitting in your office or on your chair, wherever you are, and saying, oh my gosh, I really hope I made this right decision, just because your decisions now are a lot more impactful than they were before you were a leader. So definitely, loneliness is my thing. Okay, so this is one habit that's made the biggest difference. So I'm definitely going to age myself here, but I write everything down when I go into meetings, even in my personal life, when I'm on the phone with, I don't know, a dishwasher repair person and they're giving me instructions of what I need to do. I find writing things down, first of all, I retain the information much better from writing it down. But I also find that going back to that just kind of triggers and reminds me of that conversation, and it really helps me. So if you're not like a pen and paper person, even if you use like a OneNote on your computer, or I use a notes app on my phone a ton for my to-do list, and I just like to write things down. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of go back to my notes and just scroll through and remind myself of the things that I was either thinking about. Sometimes I'll sit in the meeting and somebody will just say something like, oh, I got to remind myself about that. Okay, a piece of advice I didn't believe at first, that you can have a family and run a business and you don't have to pick. That's definitely something that I've learned. A decision I'm glad I made, even though it was uncomfortable. Oh, rescuing goats. That was uncomfortable. I did not know that I was going to be able to do that. And I am glad that we do that. We kind of have a goat sanctuary at the farm. And so I love that. And they're like my little babies. A leadership trait I'm still actively working on, cleaning the goat pen. No, I'm kidding. But that's hard. It's not easy, and I've done that. A leadership trait that I'm still actively working on. I would say, reminding myself that I am the leader of the company. Sometimes I'm so focused on like, oh, let me just go and help and whatever. And sometimes you are the leader, and so I'm sitting at my desk going, "Who's got this office? Oh, it's mine." So that is something that you have to think about. Best feedback I've ever received. That people love my farm and my goats. I don't know. I feel like that's the best feedback I've ever received. I worked so hard just to kind of make it into a sanctuary and make it like into a beautiful place for us to spend our day. We spend so much time here as a team, and the fact that like I get the feedback that it's beautiful. Everybody loves being with the goats, and we love being on the farm. To me, that makes me so happy. Couple of reflections of things that I wanted to share. So, from the goat up, what does that mean to me? I wanted a space for fellow women, to really be able to join somewhere, a community or a space where they can feel that they're not alone in anything and everything that they're trying to achieve. And so, from the goat up is really right. It's from wherever you are. It's from the start. It's from the middle, or it's from even if you're super successful. I think we can all, band together and help each other out as women in this world. And so that's what that, means to me. One thing I wish people in the messy middle knew. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to fall down a lot. The key is getting up, dusting yourself off, and keep going. And then a question you should really ask yourself every day this year, which I do that every year for myself, is what do you want to do that you're not doing that you should? And you should absolutely make a plan, baby steps. If you can't just jump in and do it, baby steps, but you should definitely make the plan and do it. Thank you so much for joining me and Ask Me Anything segment. I really enjoyed answering all of your questions. Feel free to submit on social any questions that you would like to hear me answer. If we get enough, I'll do it again. Of course, please continue to listen. We have some amazing episodes upcoming with some great experts. So wherever you listen to podcasts, we hope you join us again. Yeah. talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to From the Goat Up. Please tune in to our biweekly episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, save, and share at Diona Skincare.